All right, welcome for week 2 of From the Stands, season 2.
Gonna restart there again. It's week 3.
Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah, there was no week 0, so that's basically messed
yeah. They did like
messed
a
everyone up
half
who
week.
normally follows it.
But
Did like a half week and called it week 1.
okay, but like, was that not last weekend? Or I'm very confused.
There was no week 0 because week 0 is only used for basically when Hawaii plays and Hawaii's not playing.
Okay, well, welcome to week 3 then. We're running with some interesting issues that have arisen. We've got some last minute news that if we had recorded last night, we wouldn't have had anyway, and so that would have been fascinating. I guess you can call it serendipitous in the worst way possible. But first, before we get into that, let's run with the weekly recap. If one of y'all wants to take that.
Yeah, I mean, not a ton of action. Week 2 going on. I think we really need to look at for the whole season going forward. I thought most impressive performance to me, which is actually a loss, was Wake Forest. I think having the Big Ten starting not till I guess late October, it leaves a little bit of room for all these kind of mid-pack ACC, Big 12, SEC teams that might not usually have a shot. And I liked Wake Forest's game against Clemson. They didn't look too bad, and it was a huge improvement over, I think, the 55-3 loss of last season. So that's a decent showing for them. Notre Dame took care of Duke pretty easily. Didn't see any problems there. And nothing else really stood out to me. Syracuse has a bunch of players out in the ACC. Got kind of pummeled by UNC, so I'm not really giving UNC any props on a depleted Syracuse team. I don't know. What do you got, Cam?
Well, first off, I'm going to do something called the British Blazer update. We lost to Miami. I didn't like it. We got absolutely run the fuck over. We were just destroyed, and so I'm going to avoid talking about it for too long. But just know, even several thousand miles away, it hurt.
It's okay.
I mean,
That's
yeah,
just growing pains for your team.
it really wasn't that exciting of a weekend, except for a couple of games that we'll talk about here in a second. But it feels like, most of the teams that should have won, with the exception of 3 that I can think of, which leads us into our next topic of the Big 12.
Hate to see it.
You hate to see it. I'm trying to get my transitions to go here. Y'all can't see it because the way that I set this up like an amateur. I'm no Caleb, but he's made it as easy as possible for me to run this. The title card says Big 12, more like Bad 12.
That is exceptional joke. The peak of comedy.
So personally, I took a lot of joy in watching Iowa State lose. I didn't feel as good about Kansas State losing because I like Kansas State well enough. And then there's Kansas.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, like I was kind of saying, the middle of the packs really had their shot with the way this entire season is going. At least in terms of if we do bowl games, getting a decent bowl, or maybe even a team comes out of nowhere sneaking into a playoff spot. Entire mid-pack or what I think we would expect to be the mid-pack, with at least Kansas State, Iowa State's usually in there, completely blew their shot already week 1. Kansas, I think everyone's loving the Les Miles show that's going on there. it's a terrible loss still.
Yeah.
It's been decent with the recruiting. Can't lose to Coastal Carolina 2 years in a row and just, sweep that under the rug. Offense to Coastal Carolina fans, of course. But yeah, entire middle of the Big 12 has just, week one, lost any shot of any black horse run at anything of value, I guess, for the season. So, I don't know. Embarrassing, I'll put it.
Yeah, a little bit. Cam, you got anything to add?
Well, I think embarrassing as much as it is disappointing, I think, for a lot of the teams. I mean, in fairness, besides Kansas game against Coastal Carolina, they could have gone the other way. Kansas just got annihilated. But in terms of Arkansas State with Kansas State, it was a close game. That was one that could have gone the other way. It was this Arkansas State's got 38 seconds from time. If you can stop the guy run the half the length of the field, if you stop him at any point between where he starts and the end zone, you stand a much better chance of winning the game. They didn't do that. They lost. That can happen. Iowa State lost mostly because they gave the ball away and also because they conceded 2 return touchdowns, which whenever you concede on special teams, the deck kind of stacks against you quite heavily. That is a slightly more worrying thing for them to look at, but it doesn't happen as often in terms of being beaten by special teams. So I wouldn't say it's anything from the team standpoint. It's not as worrying, except for Kansas, because they really didn't show any form of positivity in their game.
Yeah, so I will say to Kansas's, I don't want to say credit, but they came out of halftime looking like a much better team than the first half. They just unfortunately dug themselves like a 4 or 5 touchdown deficit. They had it within 2, I think, at one point, and then it just fell apart again on them with like 5 minutes left. So it wasn't. I think they're taking baby steps in the right direction.
If you're Kansas, you still can't be losing that game.
Yeah. Now, I will say that they lost to them last year and then went on to have, a decent enough season as far as Kansas is concerned.
You think this is a catalyst to a good Kansas?
I'm not going to say good, but I think
Coastal
is...
Coastal Carolina.
I bet Coastal is better than people are going to give them credit for.
They were decent last year. Too small for me to remember the name, but they had a decent running back.
Yeah.
Not sure if he graduated or not. Going to look that up real quick. They had a solid run game. Give some teams a challenge, but 2 years in a row, if you take the split, if you're Kansas and you take the split against Coastal, I'd say no problems. Move along. I don't know. Not a great look.
Yeah.
I will say, after Cam pointed out, the ending of the Kansas State game, it's probably a little harsh to call Kansas State's loss embarrassing, so I'll retract that a little bit. Yeah, that was a bit of a wild ending in that game.
Yeah. Well, while you're looking that up, I have something that I'm going to make a statement. I think that Kansas was not the worst performance of the Big 12. They had the loss, but I think Texas Tech had an even worse performance, winning by 2 points against a team that has 18 wins in their program history. Yeah. Texas Tech played Houston Baptist and looked abysmal at best.
I think the losses kind of overshadowed that. Until you brought it up just then, I had forgotten about that, which Texas Tech fans are hoping everyone forgets about.
Yeah. I'm starting to wonder how warm is it Matt Wells is their coach, the guy from Utah State? I think that's where he came from.
Sure off the top of my head.
I'm starting to wonder how warm his seat's getting. After this is his second year, I think.
Yeah, I talked about this privately with you, kind of. If the team, any team that has, Baptist or anything like that spelled out in the name, shouldn't be losing to those kind of schools. A 2-point loss, not much better. Or sorry, 2-point win, not much better than a full out loss.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was kind of I don't know if that's Houston Baptist maybe just signing some players. That their QB, Billy Zapp, 567 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I mean, Texas Tech's offense didn't play that poorly. This could just be a case of Houston Baptist getting a few playmakers and surprising Tech,
I mean, it's
or
possible.
Classic Big 12, no defense, middle of the pack team. Either way, not a great start for them either. So.
No defense coming from an American Conference fan. That's a bold take.
We'll say we run on average about 60 offensive plays a game, all right? If you put me on the field, that amount of, I mean, what are we talking? That 15 minutes, so you give the other team 45 minutes on offense, they're probably going to score some points on you.
Yeah. Well, I think that pretty much covers the Big 12 for this week. Oklahoma, Texas, they won. West Virginia was dominant. And that's not as fun to talk about. So we'll move on to the next conversation here that we need to have, and that is the talks of the Big Ten coming back and trying to squeak back into fall play. They saw that everyone else was getting to play with the exception of Pac-12 and a couple of G5 conferences, and said, "Well, hey, we want money too." And so, they're coming back.
Let me ask you guys this. It only took 1 week. I mean, I'm not going to count week 1. I mean, we already had this conversation at the very start of the show. Week 0, week 1, whatever it was, there wasn't much football. It took 1 full week of Power 5 conferences playing for them flip the script and say, all right, we're coming back. We think this is maybe a money thing, and they're saying, okay, everyone else is playing. You can't sit on the sideline here, take a big hit. Because as we found out with all these schools, not even just football, across their athletic spectrum, they've been closing down programs left and right, dropping scholarships because these football programs bring in that much money. Do we think, it's kind of that? Or on the other side, this may have been a legal play that they had, once they shut down, they had lawyers saying, okay, make sure these other conferences have played some football, and that'll kind of cover our asses here. Because once we then rejoin, we don't have to worry about, any sort of collective player lawsuit against us as a conference or as a school.
It could be that. It could be that they're claiming, I think, now that there's more testing readily available for them to use to make sure that the players are safe and all of that. But personally, I think it's money. I mean, money's the most important thing in athletics at this point.
Oh, it's true, but there's also the PR angle of it, which is you got the President of the United States involved in your resuming of the conference. If you get the White House made an announcement when the Big Ten returned, if you have not only your players that are potentially turning against you if you don't let them play, but you also have now your own country's leader berating you, that's not just a service. There's probably stuff happening beneath the surface that is putting pressure on you to resume play. So I think, yes, the money is a big factor. I think the legal side could be a big factor, but there was a lot of mounting public pressure for the Big Ten to resume play.
Yeah. Yeah, that probably had a little bit to do with it, but I think it still comes down to money, and I would be curious to see if there is some sort of, we'll call it an academic subsidy that went on behind closed doors regarding them starting play again.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an odd move, but I mean, we can brush past that because we're never going to know. They're
Right.
probably never going to announce it. But getting into the specifics for their reopening, some of the more interesting details. December 20th is the cutoff for CFP selection. The Big Ten has announced that they're going to play eight games regular season. Every team will play 9 games total, which I kind of like how they've gone. Everyone plays their 8 games, and then you play your other side of the conferences, whoever is ranked the same as you. So the conference championship obviously is 1 versus 1, and down the line they're all playing each other, which I think is pretty sweet. Oh, I'm hearing my audio is not great. Has that been fixed?
No, yours is fine. Cameron's keeps going kind of robot-y.
It's because I am in fact a machine.
And I don't know. We run all this through Discord, and so I don't know if Discord's noise suppression is causing issues because I've had issues with that before. But you're still understandable. It's just it goes a little haywire.
Goodness.
Yeah. Sorry, viewers. Yeah. So
He's actually
They'll be
speaking
playing
true
the-
British.
Yes, I'm sorry the British
They'll be
dude
playing
is
their-
making this unwatchable.
So they'll be playing those 8 games, the 9th, during conference championship week. The thing I find more interesting is they have 21-day quarantine period, which is a week longer than the other conferences are doing. If you are quarantined or you come down with it or you get contact traced because you were in a position group where someone got it, 21 days is essentially half the season at that point.
Yeah.
So that could be really rough on some of these teams. I don't know if we're going to see every Big Ten team finish their season, to be honest. We could see some people go into CFP selection, assuming they have a hope. I mean, Ohio State, I think you got to put in there, maybe Michigan with a prayer. It could be missing, 20, 25 players, and the committee's going to take that into consideration. So that'll kind of hurt you in the long run if you are, a Michigan, an Ohio State looking to make that run. But I don't know. It'll be rough. I guess we'll see halfway through the season how they're doing with cases, but at least they're playing football.
Yeah. Well, supposedly they're playing football.
Right.
They have to get there first. The other thing that's interesting is they've had so many players that have opted out of the season because it wasn't going to happen, and they just decided that they were going to start practicing, talking to agents, all of that, and now they're coming back and saying, we're going to play. How does that impact these players?
Legally, that's a mess legally because all those
I know specifically, a few of them that took up the agents. There was an article written, I want to say ESPN posted it maybe, but I don't want to give them credit if they didn't. Talking about the precedent for these players coming back if they've declared and signed an agent, because what happens is some of them will take upfront money. There's a punter from Arizona State related to, anyone know off the top of their head, Giants punter, absolute beast, absolute unit. I'm going to say Justin Tuck, maybe?
Look, this is a college football show. All I know is college football.
Well, from the Tuck family. It's from a long line of athletes, basically. So he declared early. He got his exemption. Declared early. Didn't get drafted, and was allowed to go back to Arizona State for this season because of COVID-related issues with his draft. They said that he wasn't able to properly show off his skill set. So the claim that they had was that, right? Yeah, the claim was that will probably set precedent to anyone looking to come back. They should be able to. I know we've already seen it with a few state players, so we'll see. This is all in the NCAA's hands.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see the way it plays out. I guess if they took the money up front, they could always just give it back.
Turn it, yeah. Those Indian givers.
Yeah, just like, oh, we're gonna hold it for a minute, and then but it's still your money.
Right. But I mean, I know just in the last 24 hours, obviously Sean Wade was the big name at Ohio State, opting out of his opt-out. Michigan OT Jalen Mayfield. Talked to Micah Parsons. He said he's considering it. Obviously, I don't know what his draft position is, but he's at least first 3 rounds. I'll end of the first round, maybe. He said he's considering coming back, so it'll be interesting to see, if they let some people back and don't, issues kind of arise there. But I think NCAA has somehow been nice enough to the players in the last 12-ish months with regards to transfers and all that kind of thing. I think everyone will be fine.
Yeah. The other thing will be interesting will be starting positions. If they've already started practicing and you have these better athletes that come back and they've already given a starting position to someone else. I mean, obviously they can take that away, but right. It's kind of shitty for the kid that got the starting position to be preparing for his big primetime debut, and all of a sudden here comes this 5-star athlete that was going to skip the season because they can make money, and then they come back and say, oh, never mind, I want to play this year. So screw you, kid.
I mean, that's the life, though.
Yeah. I guess you're kind of used to it at that point. So following the Big Ten, my graphic says B1G strikes back. Surprise, surprise. And in following that, the next one is Return of the Pac. The Pac-12 is talking about trying to start playing again, which is fascinating to me after all of the posturing that they've done about the stance they were taking on the season. And this one definitely feels about money.
Think so?
Yeah, just a little bit. Because their whole thing was, never, we're not doing it, it's not safe, we got to think about the kids. And then all of a sudden it's, okay, well maybe we can make it back by Halloween weekend if we start tomorrow.
I mean, I guess this maybe plays in with the money kind of thing. To me, the way that some players, especially on Oregon, have postured since Pac-12 announced that they weren't going to play, I think the Pac-12 is feeling the pressure of losing those recruits, especially now that the Big Ten has announced that they're back. They're the only conference, or at least only 5 conference, to not come back this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think their recruiting for those top teams would be for the at least next 2 or 3 seasons. I feel like they probably were getting a little pressure from the coaches, the Pac-12, saying, "Hey, listen, if we're out, these other 4 play, we're screwed for the next few years." Not sure which specific player it was, but it was on Oregon, really demanding that.
I remember that. I read about that.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think players have that kind of power, but he did it. He came out and he said he was demanding that the Pac-12 let them play football again. You can't let an uprising like that start get boiling, because if it boils over, you'll lose recruits for years to come. It just puts a bad taste in everyone's mouth towards, especially, California, a huge recruiting state.
Mm-hmm.
Might get kids leaving for the Big 12, Big 10, as opposed to staying under your USCs, your Oregons. I think they kind of had to. Their hand was forced.
Yeah, but counterpoint to that, you have, if you don't play this season, you have the entire season to do all of your recruiting of these kids that are otherwise, stuck doing school stuff. Whereas the other coaches have to plan or game plan and do all of, the regular season activities. And so now you have all of this free time, if you want to call it that. And as far as not letting an uprising happen, I mean, if you're a prospective student and you see that you can come in and, you can have these changes that you voice your opinions on, and all of a sudden you're offering power to the kids, or at least the idea of it, that would be a pretty strong selling point, I would think, to some of the higher end recruits.
Maybe, yeah, especially if they're local. But are you really gonna, if you're a 4 or 5 star athlete, you're really gonna be convinced by extra Zoom call or an extra Skype call from a Pac-12 coach?
I mean, I'll put it this way: if I was a 4 or 5 star recruit, I wouldn't be convinced by any Skype or Zoom call from a Pac-12 coach.
Well, yeah,
they've been
right.
Pretty bottom of the pack for a few years now, with the exception of Washington.
Let's call it let's say you're a high 3 star with a lot of potential. Are you going to be convinced some extra calls with a Pac-12 coach rather than watching another team that you might want to go to actually playing football? Because I'm a recruit. That's my first question. They come to me, hey, coach thinks, I'm putting in the extra work with this recruit. He's going to love it. My first question to the coach is, why aren't you guys playing football? Everyone else is back. Make something happen.
Yeah.
I don't. It wouldn't. The recruit, I wouldn't love it. So I think they were kind of forced into the situation. I think they'll be fine. They're probably if they start Halloween, they'd probably do almost identical to the Big Ten. Game schedule finished by December 20th. They'll probably even copy the 21-day quarantine period, just to be safe. So I think they're fine in the end.
Yeah.
There is also the point to make that the entire West Coast is burning to a crisp, and the air quality is descending. Like, it's day to day is just awful. So I mean, there's the COVID measures and the safety protocols regarding that, but you've also got skies that are, they talk about the Halloween, return date. Well, you're going to have a Halloween atmosphere when the sky is just bright, smoggy orange.
Yeah. And that's a whole other problem for the West Coast, but it's to me it's still money, and recruiting is tied back to money. Everything's tied back to money. If you don't get good recruits, you don't get good playoff berths, you don't make money. So it's if it was truly about the health of the kids, they would say, whatever, we'll have to claw our way back from being second worst to worst. Sorry, worst to second worst over the ACC. But I don't know that taking 1 year off for it is going to hurt them all that much if they were truly doing it out of concern. Now, if they want to come out and say, hey, yeah, it's about the money, I respect the hell out of that. Just be honest about it instead of saying, oh, well, maybe not. So, anyone else have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think we're finished there.
Okay.
Until we get something official from the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Call it done and dusted.
Yeah. Well, that leads us to our next section of either, neither, or both, which, our first E and B, as I have them abbreviated on my computer, is, which you think is more likely, or, either, neither, or both, which will make the college playoff, a Big Ten team or a G5 team.
Yeah, so we should probably start out saying these questions were written yesterday when we were supposed to be filming.
Yeah.
Things have changed a little since the Big Ten's announcement, and now the Pac-12 also looking to follow suit. Maybe we can eliminate the G5 teams entirely now. That was kind of like I was discussing earlier. Those middle of the pack P5 teams that were looking to maybe sneak in because of the loss of conferences, and the G5 teams, probably you're looking at Cincinnati, UCF, Boise State, hell, maybe App State pulls something crazy. But I think that's entirely out of the question now with the Big Ten back. Big Ten team, well, again, that question was written, not expecting the Big Ten to be back so soon. So I'm going with a Big Ten team for sure. I mean, you got to think, especially with the opt-outs opting back in for Ohio State, some very big names, especially on defense, which has been pretty depleted. I think Ohio State has a great shot at returning to the playoff this year. So I'm going Big Ten.
I think that classifies by the rules of the segment as an either.
Yeah, that's my either is the Big Ten.
Cam, what about you?
Yeah,
What do you got?
I think. Yeah, I'm with Brian. I mean, if the Big Ten doesn't come back and if they do this plan where they are able to get in those full 9 games, then I think that the Big Ten he's going to be definitely into. Whoever wins the Big Ten is definitely going to be in consideration of the playoff. I think now that you have 4 of the 5 currently, the Power 5 conferences back, then I think that makes it incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for a G5 team to get consideration.
Okay. I mean, the safe pick would be to say Big Ten, obviously, but I kind of want to take a spicy take here. I'm going to say neither, because I'm not convinced that the playoff's going to happen this year. I know they keep saying it's going to happen, but I don't think it will, and the reasons for it are, you have conferences that are coming in, they're only playing in conference, so you don't really have a good idea of how good they are. You have one conference that may not even play, which would make the selection process a whole lot easier. You just take the best of each conference. But then you need to add into the fact that, well, okay, so they pick the teams for the playoff, and let's say it's one from the SEC, ACC, Big Ten, and Big 12. But one of them has to postpone or cancel or forfeit because of contact tracing or positive cases or what have you. So do you pick the runner-up then, or do you just default it and give it to the team that was able to show up?
Are you talking postpone
a playoff game?
You don't think there'd be a big enough gap between the selection and when the games are scheduled?
I mean, there might be, but if it happens the week before, you still have to postpone at that point.
Well, I feel like, usually, if we're talking 1 week, teams are usually on site, their games, an entire week before. You push it out to 2 weeks, I can see maybe someone gets it because they were stupid and went out partying or whatever. But I feel like they'd be able to mitigate some sort of huge outbreak.
I mean, you would think that, but Houston's had back-to-back postponements because their teams couldn't stay away from COVID.
Yeah, but you hate to dog a team for something like this, but I'm not going to put Houston on the same level of
Right, but
professionalism as a playoff contender.
it's
Let's just
not.
say Alabama, for example, gets picked. Nick Saban's not going to let them out of anyone's sight. Like they're going to be on them for those 2 or 3 weeks until games start. So, and I think at that point, players know. I mean, a team like that is going to make a run towards the playoff. They're not going to ruin their chances. I mean, hopefully, doing something stupid week before.
I mean,
so I think you probably lose a few players per team, but I don't think there's going to be a scenario where 40 people the team catch it and you lose like your entire starting line or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's unlikely, but it's still very possible. And so these are all scenarios that they have to plan for. And then even more on top of that, when are they going to have it if they keep having to postpone games and push the schedule or like the schedules further down the line? At one point, do you say, okay, this is the cutoff date for season games? If you don't play it by then you don't get to play them.
I mean, I do kind of like. It's an interesting take because, when I was reading through their ruling, the selection committee is December, or the final selection is December 20th. Games for the Big Ten are slotted to end, I believe, on the 19th.
Mm-hmm.
No room for error. If a game is canceled, you can't play it.
Yeah.
There's no rescheduling. There's no buffer zone for the Big Ten. So, I mean, even if it's, say, Ohio State does go undefeated, but they have 3 games canceled, could be onto something that, a 5-0 Ohio State, if they look good, do you think the committee is going to throw them in there? Maybe not. So, I do like that. That is a pretty spicy take, and I like it.
Yeah, and I don't know that it'll. I think it's going to be a logistical nightmare to plan, and I think it will blow up drastically in their face. But, I mean, if they want to try it, that's more power to them. They got a lot on the line for it. So
I like it.
So the next one that we have, we'll move on from this because I feel like we could talk about this forever, is either, neither, or both. Which do you think is more likely to go undefeated in the season, Notre Dame or Florida?
I went.
You want to start this one?
Yeah, I went for this one. I went neither. I think both of them will lose at least one. I think Notre Dame having to play Clemson, that's going to be a very difficult game for them to get past. And I think if they lose one game, it's going to be that one. Florida, the same. I think if they lose one game, it could be to Georgia. And that's kind of where that's where I stood. And basically, if they lose one game, it'll be those games. So I went out on the bit of a limb and went neither.
Okay.
It's all you.
All right. Thought we were going to you.
Now I'll do the last one on all of them so I can move it along afterwards.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, like you said, that Notre Dame Clemson game could be an early, basically ACC championship game. Notre Dame. I'm a noted Notre Dame hater.
It's just so easy to do.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to do it. I feel like anyone that's not Notre Dame alum is probably at least somewhat a Notre Dame hater.
Or a devout Catholic.
Yeah, there you go. But I don't see them getting past that Clemson team. I think their shot was probably if Trevor Lawrence, with his high potential draft stock, assuming he comes out, decides to sit out the season. Because that Clemson team without him, yes, the committee's going to take that into consideration. No Trevor Lawrence. Phenomenal QB. Everyone knows that. That Clemson team is still good enough to make that a good win for Notre Dame. I don't think they win that, though. As far as Florida goes, I mean, my hang-up in Georgia, obviously always a tough game. They're playing that game in Jacksonville again. Probably not the smartest thing to do.
Wait, are they really?
World's largest cocktail party.
Oh my
As
God.
of now, world's largest cocktail party is still going on. I believe on the same date. Trying to see here. Okay, it's
The state of Florida
November 7th. I
just
believe that's
it finds
Well, the
new ways
small-
to disappoint me.
A lot of smart people in charge of scheduling these games.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that gives them. That's a good game. Georgia gives them a really hard time. LSU, I'm not really sure what to think about LSU.
Yeah.
They've lost so many pieces.
Most
But-
of them to Baylor.
What's that?
Said most of the people they lost went to Baylor.
Yeah, they're LSU 2.0.
Maybe.
The words coming out of from LSU, the people around the program, fans, who at least seem like they know a little bit about it, that team will still be up to par. Defense is going to be completely changed. I know Coach O. I don't know, maybe he's just a secret troll. He's been trolling Aranda's defense since he left, claiming that this year's defense is already better than all of last year. That's a bold claim. Obviously, the LSU defense did have a few holes last year, but again, like you're trying to give me a jab about UCF's defense. LSU, that was the greatest offense LSU has ever had. They moved the ball so easily. It gave teams that much more time of possession. You're gonna, if you have that extra possession throughout the entire season, or your defense is on the field that much longer, they're going to tire out faster. People are going to score more on you, obviously. So we'll see if Coach O is a line about that. But I think LSU also gives them a hard time. And I'm not sold on Kyle Trask. So also going to go neither here. I feel like they probably both come out with one loss. So maybe they still sneak into the playoff, but I'm going one loss. Neither team undefeated.
Yeah. I feel that it's a neither for me as well. Notre Dame is giving me kind of the same feeling that Notre Dame gave me the year that they opened against Texas, and Texas was back and all of that, and it's feeling very, very similar. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them just completely crumble as the season goes on. Plus, they have to play a really tough Clemson team. There are a couple other teams in the ACC that, while they're not stellar or even great, they're pretty good teams. UNC every now and then will shock some people. Florida State, if they really, really wanted to be, could probably be a good team again. There's no way that Jimbo Fisher did that much damage to them before he left.
Keep in mind, FSU already lost.
I know. I know they lost. I watched it happen. I had completely missed that they hired Mike Norvell from Virginia Tech. And I think the pieces are there. I think it's a locker room issue. I don't.
FSU, you're saying?
Yeah, for Florida State. I don't think it's a talent problem or a coaching problem even. I think it's something deeper. But as far as Florida is concerned, they have a pretty tough schedule, and I'm usually pretty hard on Florida as you can tell, I don't like Florida. But
I completely agree.
they find new ways to make me angry. I'm just gonna go neither. I think that both have too tough schedules to go undefeated. Which leads us
three neithers.
Yeah, it leads us to our next one, which is more likely. Two SEC teams in the playoff or two ACC teams in the playoff. Again, this is without really considering too heavily that the Big Ten is really going to make a comeback, or that the Pac-12 might even be playing at some point.
Question
Again.
obviously also written yesterday.
Yeah, this is a great time to announce for the 100th time. These questions were written before the Big Ten announced they were returning.
Yeah.
In case you hadn't heard, the Big Ten is back.
Wait, really?
We haven't said it enough. Yeah, so I don't know. Coming off of just talking about those two teams that we were, Notre Dame and Florida, Notre Dame, I think, could have been that second ACC team, even regardless of who lost unless it's a massive blowout. I think both Notre Dame and Clemson, without the Big Ten announcing a comeback, I think both had a great shot at getting in. SEC, probably a similar scenario. Personally, I'm not sure whether I like, in Alabama, Georgia taking those two slots, or some other scenario where, it comes down to an Alabama LSU, assuming, this LSU team is for real again this year, without all their lost pieces. I don't know. I mean, I think the SEC teams are slotted better, so I'm gonna go with that. I don't think a one-loss Notre Dame can get in. So if Notre Dame loses that Clemson game, I think I'm going to count them out. What do you got, Duncan?
Well, let's see. It's the Big Ten complicates things now, because if they manage to have a season without a hitch and they get all their games in, then really you're just looking at Big Ten winner, SEC winner, ACC winner,
Big 12.
Big 12 winner. And then that's the easy thing. The thing is, it's all very dependent now on if the Big Ten can get those games in. And like you said, Brian, if they have to have like 3 games postponed, and it's a 5-0 Ohio State team, and if it is an undefeated Notre Dame team, then you're thinking that they're going to take that into consideration. You've got an undefeated Notre Dame team and an Ohio State team who, yeah, we know Ohio State are good, but they've only played 5 games.
Right.
I think under that scenario, you can get 2 ACC teams, and on the same sides that, yeah, if you have the same thing with Bama and LSU or whatever, then there's the possibility. So I think on that note, I'm going to go with either, but it's a very conditional, hopeful either.
Yeah, but which either?
He's leaving it out there.
Flip a coin. That whatever my opinion is.
I think the SEC has the best chance at it. I do wonder if, when it comes to Notre Dame joining the ACC for the season, if that would weigh at all in choosing them for a playoff. Just because it's, they were willing to make a concession for whatever, because, I mean, no one really actually knows what happens behind the closed doors of the playoff selection committee. And so I go back and forth on it, but I think it's probably the SEC. But if I'm sticking with my prediction earlier, then it's still neither.
So here's the... I mean, I was going to ask this question, but I think I just pulled it up and answered my own question. I was going to ask which side of the ACC Notre Dame joined. Looking at the conference standings, it looks like they've grouped everyone together for the year. So there's not really, I guess, a scenario where Notre Dame and Clemson, I guess, would have to finish 1-2, regardless of Notre Dame's loss, to play again in the conference championship. Because they could, in some scenarios, play twice, split those games, and both get in.
Yeah.
from the look of it, there's no split conference this year in the ACC, so that could throw a wrench into everything.
Yeah, I don't envy the selection committee this season, if they even do it. And so, but
this is the one year where I feel like they can't take any blame because things are just too crazy.
Yeah,
I'm sure they're loving it.
Just go like absolutely wild. Put someone in the Sun Belt in. Coastal Carolina, come on down.
Oh, UCF, man.
All right, so let's slide along here to our shots and chasers, which is going to be a fun starting point for shots and chasers.
Do we need a disclaimer for this one? We normally have 6 shots and chasers, 3 shots, 3 chasers. Houston's game against Baylor was postponed, and now we only have 2 shots and 3 chasers.
Yeah, so on screen here we have the Baylor-Houston game. Watch it on Fox, except for you can't. About an hour before we started recording this show, the news broke that they had to postpone the game because Baylor had some contact tracing issues with COVID. All of their tests have come back negative, but it's too soon for it to be a really strong test, and if they've been contact traced back, then that doesn't bode well. And so they just decided to go ahead and postpone it, which is a shame because the game was scheduled in 18 hours, a week before kickoff, which just is wild. But so this time slot we are all chaser, no shot. So stay hydrated, I guess. And you can stay hydrated with the Tulane Wave.
Ooh, there's the
segue. Yeah. And who better to fight a wave than the Navy?
Oh, now the juices are flowing.
That one will be interesting. Navy looked really rough last week because they apparently have been doing non-contact practices. Was that last week or was that 2 weeks ago?
I mean,
I think it was.
The Navy BYU game?
Yeah.
I think that was just a week ago.
I was on the 7th.
Time doesn't exist, I'm convinced. It's just a myth. Whenever they played, they looked terrible because they haven't been hitting each other in practice. They've just been, I guess, doing strength and conditioning and running in place. What else do you do here?
Flag football.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. Definitely this sport, maybe alongside hockey, it's last on the list of where you don't want to be doing contact practice off season, and then come straight into a real game.
I don't know anything about Tulane this year, so.
I mean, Tulane's usually fairly decent. I'm not sure. These type of teams, it's hard to know based on who they lost. I'm not sure how many returning starters they have. They play. All right, they played the first game against South Alabama. Got a win. I think South Alabama took somebody down 0, right? Oh, they took down Southern Miss. So, I mean,
flip a coin as far as I'm concerned for this one.
Yeah, I don't think Tulane is as great as BYU usually is. I don't know. Tulane's probably going to win this game.
Yeah.
There's no way Navy gets it together this quickly. They had a week off. I still don't think it's going to be great. Tulane probably takes it, but Navy's not going to lose by 52 points again, probably.
No,
Disclaimer,
so.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm completely along those lines. I think it's too short notice for them to completely get their act together after an off season of 0 contact training, unless they have just been spending like the past 12 days literally just running into each other headfirst, non-stop, 12 hours a day. Unless they have been doing that, there really isn't a chance for them to kind of pick up the deficit. It's not going to be 55-3, but I think it still should be comfortable for Tulane, in all honesty.
Yeah. It's
Great.
Yeah, I don't know who to pick here even. I think that Navy will look better this week. I just don't know how much better. And I think it's kind of hard to figure
it's
that
hard
out.
to do worse. Hard to do worse than 55-3
Yeah.
against BYU.
So, I guess we can go ahead and move on to our next time slot here, and that is the 3:30 Eastern. Our shot is Appalachian versus Marshall. I'm taking Appalachian every day of the week.
Yeah, Appalachian is that team. I think ever since that Michigan game,
Yeah.
they're kind of everyone's Cinderella team. Everyone loves to root for Appalachian State. People probably don't even know where the school is located. They're kind of that's.
This is one of those
Cameron
this is one
agrees.
of those college teams where I have to Google how to both where it is and also how do I pronounce it,
Yeah.
because it's like I can get Oklahoma, I know that's a state. Texas, I know that's a state. What is an appellation? It's just
So that's a point of contention with them because they don't like being called Appalachian. It's Appalachian.
well, they can
You
they
gotta
can
get that
pay
Appalachian.
they can pay for the flight to come and fight me.
You don't want the creepy mountain people from North Carolina to come after you.
I lived next to the town of St. Helens for 18 years. I think I can handle some weird mountain people.
I
That
think
was a shot at a town that no one has heard of.
I was gonna say I don't think anyone's gonna get that. Yeah, no, I think since that Michigan game, they've just it catapulted them into fame and stardom, and really put them on the map. And they've come a long way since then, even just as moving up from FCS to FBS and joining. What are they in? The Sun Belt. They almost beat Tennessee a few years ago when Josh Dobbs was playing for them. It was like the last good year that Tennessee had. I think they were like 9-0 going into the game against A&M, and that year Appalachian almost beat them, and it was like the 10-year anniversary of them beating Michigan, and then on top of that, the defensive coordinator for Tennessee that year was the defensive coordinator at Michigan when they beat Michigan. And there's just something about that team that's got some weird mountain voodoo going on with it.
Mountain vibes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think this will be a pretty good game. Marshall running a freshman QB. Their offense is usually pretty potent. Won their first game. Not against tough competition or anything. I'm gonna go with Appalachian State on this one. 4-point favorites. They're at home, obviously. I don't think they're gonna have any crowd. If they do, I'm sure it'll be minimal, so it won't play much of an effect into the outcome, anyways. Like you said, they've kind of become like an FBS darling to neutral fans, and maybe ESPN the AP and coaches polls are a little heavy-handed when they rank Appalachian State. I think just on name value, they usually slot into that 25 to 20 rating range quicker than other teams. They're usually pretty legit and back it up to some degree. So I'm gonna go with Appalachian State to go 2-0 here and keep the Sun Belt moving.
This is the thing, is that talking about Marshall, because we've babbled on about Appalachian State for God knows how long now, is that they didn't concede a single point in that first game. 59-0.
Who they play?
Someone Eastern
Eastern
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Eastern Kentucky. Cool. I know where that one is. No, the point is that Appalachia's game was they were matched pretty much up until the fourth quarter. That's when they kind of ran away with the thing. But it was 21-20 going into the fourth quarter of the game, which tells me that they're not necessarily at full pace yet. Again, Eastern Kentucky is not necessarily a challenge for Marshall, but this is Appalachian team that I don't think is at full pace yet. It's a Marshall team that, while looks at full pace, hasn't been challenged yet. I think it's going to be definitely a close game, and something in me, possibly because I like green and I don't know what an Appalachian is, wants me to say Marshall. And also, I want to take a leaf out of Caleb's book from last week, who took Georgia Tech over SFU. So I am going to go out on the limb and try and recoup the losses on my record from last week and go Marshall.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's fair. For the record, Appalachia is the Appalachian Mountains, also known as the Smoky Mountains in parts. It's that whole eastern mountain range.
Well, I'll write
A little
that
fun
down.
fact.
So I guess we can follow that up with our chaser here, as one does with a chaser, with the UCF Georgia Tech game, and I don't know. My gut says Georgia Tech because I mean they played pretty well last week. No, that's a lie. I can't even say that. UCF's probably going to run away with this.
Thank you. I like that change of mind.
Yeah, I started thinking about that game and remembered it wasn't that Georgia Tech played well. It was that Florida State played terribly. And so we don't have the strongest lineup of games this week, and our one good one got postponed. And it hurt a little bit deep inside. I know I'm wearing a Tennessee shirt, but I graduated from Baylor and have grown up going to Baylor games as well. And having that postponed and having to miss 2 games in the 2 weeks that we've had, it's been sad.
See, I can't actually see your video feed right now, so wasn't sure what you're wearing, but
That's weird.
at least now I know you're rep Tennessee right now.
Yeah.
I mean, this one, I've got a UCF shirt on, UCF alum, so I'm not going to go against them in this game. Lost, a few pretty important pieces last year, but I think in this Heupel offense, everyone has adjusted very well, and Dylan Gabriel returning, he had we'll call it his freshman 15. Some bad throws last season, but all in all, he was better than I think a lot of people expected. Obviously, following in Mackenzie Milton's steps, I think the offense is going to be just as potent as last year's. Put up some good points. I think this was a 4-game series that we scheduled against Georgia Tech, maybe 3 games. We've fared pretty well against them each time, so I'm not sure how many returning starters Georgia Tech is bringing, but I really like UCF and that offense to kind of run away with this one. I'm going to call UCF wins this one by double digits, and it's locked down and done and dusted pretty early in the game.
I mean, going to Georgia Tech's performance last week, they had multiple third down conversions and they took the ball away multiple times. That is partly, yes, because Florida State sucked. I don't think they're going to have that as much big play production, with the takeaways, with moving the ball on third down. I don't think they're going to be able to do that as much against UCF, which is why, I'm taking UCF as well.
Yeah. I feel like that's a pretty safe pick for everyone involved. Which lets us move on to another Florida school. Now that we've talked about two of them for a lot. Next in our primetime slot, we have for our shot Miami and Louisville. This one I think is probably, with Baylor Houston out, is going to be the most competitive. I don't know if it's going to be good, but it's going to be competitive, I think. My gut says to take Miami. Louisville hasn't looked quite the same since Lamar Jackson left. They haven't really had any outstanding performances. And I don't know what to think about them other than that I think that Miami just has the brand recognition to do better.
Let's start with this one, Cam.
Yeah, I mean, we talked this right at the top of the show when I gave you the British Blazer update, is that Miami this year has an absolutely barnstorming running attack. They have the ability, as I've witnessed, to bulldoze a defense. And in reality, it's a Louisville defense that isn't, good enough to completely mitigate that threat. It's going to be. They're a better defense than UAB, but they're not, completely shut out the opponent's massive offensive power. So that's why I think that it will be close, because Louisville are good through the air. They have QB Michael Cunningham, who put up some decent numbers last week, who I think will continue to put up good numbers, but I think Miami will just they'll run the ball home even if it is a close one.
Yeah, I completely forgot you're on the UAB train.
Yes.
Did you give that entire game a watch? UAB.
I'll be honest, I maybe tuned out just a bit into the second half when it began to run away from us a little bit. But I watched most of it, and I watched the highlights. I caught up. I'm on this train. I am on this train no matter how much it hurts.
Enough. I was just trying to get some extra insight. I thought maybe if you watched the entire game, you'd have a little morsels for us on Miami here. Yeah, this is. I mean, I'm not excited about either of these teams, like on a personal level, but I think this is probably the game of the week. I'll watch it just for that reason. UAB not a great starting opponent to sort of anything of Miami this early. Louisville, decent win. Like you said, Cunningham, he's that dual threat quarterback that, I'm not going to say this early he's Lamar Jackson-esque, but those types of QBs have kind of been taking over, and they're really effective. I mean, maybe making a bad throw here and there, but I mean, I feel like Miami's had nothing really special player-wise the last few seasons. I think a lot of their hype has been through hyping themselves up, through things like turnover chain. I think the biggest loss for them isn't on the player side. It's going to be on the fact that no one is going to be in the stands watching them. There's going to be, like, the players are the only people who are going to be able to hype themselves up on the sideline, and try to make themselves feel special, which I feel like is kind of what Manny Diaz was doing with that team, with the turnover chain, with all that, trying to bring it back to the old Miamis, the 80s, 90s, where they had that swagger. It's hard to have swagger when there's no one in the stands. I don't know. I think just on merit, I think these are two very close teams, and it'll be a good game. Just on football personality, I think Louisville probably pulls this one out. But I think this will be a really close game and a really good one to watch.
Yeah, and then following that, or I guess like at the same time as that sometime around then. Is the Wake Forest NC State game. I'm going NC State. Wake Forest just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, I mean, aside from watching a little bit of the Clemson Wake Forest game, I don't have any strong opinions. Like I said, it was a massive improvement, their game against Clemson this year compared to last. But NC State is always pretty solid, just below top teams in the ACC. If I had to pick, you got to think NC State's going to pull this one off. Wake Forest probably going to be pretty beat up going up against those massive Clemson lines. I mean, those are some good players, and I feel like the game after a massive game like that, there's always performance drop off. So NC State, having not played anyone yet, not even just anyone, a cupcake team, they haven't played a game yet. They're going to be fresher, and I take Wake Forest to the cleaners here.
Yeah, it's a good point. This is an NC State team, though, that lost 6 straight games to finish the year last year. I mean, they basically capitulated. But I think what it is that they went through a bit of growing pains last year, which is possibly the contribution to that. They've now got those sort of bonding, getting the regime down issues a bit behind them. I think the one thing in Wake Forest's favor here is that, yes, although they did play the best team in the country, Clemson, they now still have those competitive reps under their belt, which could help them in the fact that they're a bit more tuned in. We've seen that now when teams are coming up against teams that have played a game, the contest can be a bit closer. I quite like this one. I think it could well be close because of that factor that NC State is fresh and they will not have that sort of pacing under their belt going into the game. I'd flip a coin if I had one, but I think I really, really want to pick Wake Forest just because of the fact that they have that game experience and they put up a respectable display against Clemson. It's just how much that respectable display took out of them.
Yeah.
That's going to affect this one, but because I physically can't help myself from saying I'm going to go with Wake.
Okay. Yeah, that's our games this week. But y'all got any last words, closing up statements that you want to make?
I mean, regarding the Wake's NC State game, Cameron calling it a coin flip. I know we haven't been really talking about betting, but the Vegas line is -1 for NC State, so it almost is a virtual coin flip. So yeah, I mean, I think those night games are going to be pretty exciting. So
there'll be something.
Those will be a good watch. That
I said there'll be something at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to lose noon games to COVID racing, then at least make the night games watchable.
Yeah.
So I think we have covered all the bases. That is everything planned for the show. Remember, we are from the stands. We're on all of the social medias. We're on Facebook, Twitter. I think we're on Instagram. They're on the description. There's a graphic up above.
The graphic's a little broken at the moment. I'm going to see what I can do to salvage it and post.
Okay, so there isn't a graphic above my head as of saying this.
Well, above your head says thanks to our patrons. It'd be above my head.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, Patreon, if you like us rambling on for an hour about all things college football and hearing my wonderful British voice, and I can say things with R's in them if you would like. You can donate to us on Patreon. You can put in the note what words you would like me to say in my British accent.
There you go.
I'm here all the time to record them. But yeah, so if you like what we do here, you want to contribute to it, we have a Patreon, we have all sorts of social media, so make sure to go follow us over there.
They'll all be in the description if I'm not able to get them working in the video. So just if that's something you're interested in, be sure to read the description and follow the links. Click on all of that. Hit the like button, the bell, so you can know when we've posted
Videos.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. We're just rambling at this point, and we've gone 15 minutes longer than I thought we were going to. So, thanks everyone.
Bye bye.
You guys.